So back in March, I had already picked out who I thought would be vice presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. And lo and behold, it is Kamala Harris. It is her. Okay. And I could not be more, I guess, anxious. Some people, they feel validated and happy when their prediction comes through, but I could pretty much say that Kamala Harris is probably one of the people I thought during the nomination process she was the worst possible candidate. She would, in terms of who would cause the most damage if she would become president.
Can't help but noting how everything is different. This was the kind of announcement that in the old days I would have sat here, I would have read an introduction, we'd have taken you to the stage and the two candidates standing there together, obviously.
Look, it's Kamala Harris with her new hairstyle and her fantastic pairs. That's quite a pair of glasses she's got on there.
It can't happen in this environment. Let me bring in NBC News political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Chuck, talk about the politics of this now. The White House, we saw that image, and we see it behind you, the White House, where clearly they've already been trying out talking points.
Yes, Cuck, please give us your unbiased and entirely professional opinion about this election.
Depending on which person was chosen today.
Well, look, I think there's a few things to bring up about this ticket. Number one, the closest corollary I think it has in sort of modern presidential politics is actually Reagan-Bush 1980. One of the most effective attack lines on Ronald Reagan in the primary came from George H.W. Bush, who called supply-side economics voodoo economics. And there was a lot of questions before he decided to put him on the ticket, and even after Bush was put on the ticket. Oh, can he be trusted? Is this or that? But it was a sort of a powerful alliance that they realized they needed in 1980 as they kept their party unified. They thought they had an historic opportunity. A lot of us in political circles believe 2020 looks a lot like 1980. And to me, that parallel, who hit Joe Biden the hardest in the primary? We were at that debate, Lester. It was Kamala Harris. In some ways, it shows.
I think the candidate that hit Joe Biden the worst was Joe Biden.
Shows you that I think he wants to send the message, hey, this is, he doesn't hold grudges, number one, but he does want somebody who's tough enough to campaign. I think she is a really good campaigner. Yes, people will look back on her presidential campaign and say, geez, she struggled a little bit. And I would argue one of the reasons she struggled is she was, is she a progressive? Is she a pragmatist?
Say Tulsi Gabbard's name.
She was someone in between, if you will, sort of in between Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden, which I think is another reason why they picked her. She is seen as somebody, I think, who can be a bridge to the progressive community, though you'll see some progressives hand-wring today. They're not going to be, that was why you saw a boomlet for Karen Bass, who's seen as more progressive, more to the left of Kamala Harris. But if you're the Joe Biden campaign, and if you look at the history of presidential candidates who were leading at the time they decided to pick their running mate, it almost is always the person everybody assumes it should be. And if you think about it, Lester, Biden-Harris was the ticket a lot of people were speculating on back when this campaign began in January of 2019.
All right, Chuck, let me go back to White House correspondent Kristen Welker.
All right, Chuck, let's get somebody who actually has some sort of independent thought and capability of not pandering to the most establishment tropes that there are.
Hearing anything from the president or the White House about this pick?
I am, Lester. I just got a little bit of reaction from White House official who tells me that this was an expected pick by most within the administration. Expect the campaign to hit Harris heavily on her own criticisms of Biden and hyper-partisanism. Far left moments in the Senate. Overall, no one here is surprised. The bottom line, though, taking a step back, Lester, I think that the administration, the campaign, trying to figure out exactly how to go after Harris. This is someone who could potentially blunt the president's law and order message. This is someone who has a background in law enforcement. This is also someone who, during the primary, President Trump didn't typically take aim at. In fact, he praised her for having the best rollout. And on the day that Harris announced that she
Yeah, I think that was you missing how trolling works. So maybe you ought to figure out how people can sort of look beyond the plain text of what people say.
She was dropping out of the race. President Trump tweeted that he would miss her, and Harris responded to that, "We'll see you on November 3rd." So she was quick with a very sharp response. But again, this is someone who I think President Trump is still trying to figure out exactly how to pinpoint. We are getting a little bit of a window, though, into how they're going to go after her. And again, Lester, that is part of what I think Biden sees in Harris and why he sees her as such a strong candidate for that very reason. Because she is someone who President Trump really struggled to put into a box. Now, it's worth noting that earlier today during a radio interview, President Trump took aim at Biden for saying that he was going to pick a female running mate. President Trump saying that that could offend some men, so clearly signaling he's not going to shy away from gender politics this campaign cycle, just as he did in 2016, Lester.
And we were told that the others who were on that short list were notified earlier this afternoon that they were not going to be picked. Let me go to Capitol Hill correspondent Casey Hunt and talk about what a formidable force she has been as a Trump critic.
She really has been, Lester, and she came to Capitol Hill relatively recently. She's just been in the Senate for a few years, but she quickly established herself as one of the
She quickly established herself as one of the fakest, the most despicable people that we've ever come across.
Sharpest and highest profile questioners of Trump administration appointees, judicial appointees, and others. And she's really molded kind of a modern both way of holding the Senate seat, but also campaigning for president. And I interviewed her several times as she contemplated her 2020 bid. She focused quite a bit, for example, on migrant Americans, immigrants, particularly as the Trump administration was separating children from their families. And she's developed a reputation as somebody who really digs in behind the scenes. She's personable. She develops personal relationships that then she's able to rely on as
Yeah, personal relationships.
she tries to achieve her political goals. And one thing I would highlight too, Lester, is she's not been afraid to portray herself as ambitious. And as we have a conversation about a female running mate, the first black woman on the ticket, she is not
Black.
shying away from that. She didn't shy away from it during her selection process either. And that's something that the Biden team grappled with a little bit, but it became very public. And a lot of women have already come to her defense on that question. So that is kind of a new way we are seeing women move forward in this space. It's often been something that's considered to be a liability that women candidates have in the past have been told to shy away from. Kamala Harris is not one of those women. Lester.
Casey Hunt, thanks. I want to read the tweet that came from the former Vice President Biden today. He said, "I had the great honor to announce that I've picked Kamala Harris, at Kamala Harris, a fearless fighter for the little guy and one of the..."
Look, they have to drag the window. they didn't properly crop the screen.
Country's finest public servants as my running mate. He goes on to say, back when Kamala was Attorney General, she worked closely with Beau. I watched as they took on the big banks, lifted up working people, and protected women and kids from abuse. The tweet goes on to say, I was proud then, and I'm proud now to have her as my partner in this campaign. Again, in these COVID days, the announcement coming via tweet. So to repeat, Joe Biden has chosen California Senator, former prosecutor, and former primary opponent Kamala Harris as his running mate. It's a historic choice of an African-American woman as a candidate for vice president of the United States. We hope you'll stay with us for further developments in this breaking story. I'll be back with a complete wrap-up. And
so, you actually have here one of the best reasons that the Democrats should have not chosen Kamala Harris, and it's that she used to do a little oral therapy for former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown. And it says right here, and they didn't even broach that, but it is true, and you can look it up. She did used to have an affair with this guy. Former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown advised Senator Kamala Harris to politely decline any offer to be presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's running mate. Brown wrote that the vice presidency would likely hinder any further political ambitions for Harris. So he said, historically, the vice presidency has often ended up being a dead end. For every George H.W. Bush who ascended from the job to the presidency, there's an Al Gore who never got there, Brown wrote in an op-ed for the San Francisco Examiner. Brown, who served as mayor from 1996 to 2004, has said he briefly dated Harris while she was in Alameda County, California, deputy district attorney. He was also married at the time. As Speaker of the California Assembly, he later appointed her to positions on the State Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board and the California Medical Assistance Commission. The former mayor further noted that Biden and his vice president would almost certainly take office amid a continued economic downturn. The next few years promised to be a very bumpy ride, he wrote. Barack Obama and the Democrats saved the nation from economic collapse when he took office, and their reward was a blowout loss in the 2010 midterm elections. Brown suggested that Harris could be more effective and better positioned for an ongoing political career as U.S. Attorney General. Given the department's current disarray under William Barr, just showing up and being halfway sane will make the new AG a hero, he wrote. Best of all, being Attorney General would give Harris enough distance from the White House to still be a viable candidate for the top slot in 2024 or 2028. She's already the top. Well, I can't say that on YouTube, so no matter what the state of the nation. Biden has promised to name a woman as his running mate, in addition to Harris. So anyway, we know now that it is Kamala Harris, or Kamala Horris, as I've called her. And they've already released an attack ad that I'm sure that they just had waiting for it from the Trump campaign.
Kamala Harris ran for president by rushing to the radical left, embracing Bernie's plan for socialized medicine, calling for trillions in new taxes, attacking Joe Biden for racist policies. Voters rejected Harris. They smartly spotted a phony. But not Joe Biden. He's not that smart. Biden calls himself a transition candidate. He is handing over the reins to Kamala while they jointly embrace the radical left. Slow Joe and phony Kamala. Perfect together. Wrong for America. Kamala Harris ran for president by rushing to the radical left.
I would play that twice because I think that does hit very, 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 very deeply. And you see people are already taking offense to it. Phony Kamala, I thought it was too ambitious, Kamala. Can't you even keep your sexist slurs? How is it sexist to call someone phony? How is that sexist? This person said, I'm just glad Biden picked a black running mate, but black in quotation marks. So yeah, there's not going to be a lot of people who are going to be like there's plenty of people I think that are going to be caping for Kamala, but here it is. Your favorite nickname for Kamala: Phony Kamala or Biden's living will? Both are great. I'm going with Phony Kamala though because anyone can see right through her. Her sick cackle makes Hillary seem tame. So this is like, I would say, one of the like here, somebody says Joe picks Phony Kamala. This is a White House spokesperson. And just like that, Joe's move to the political socialist left is complete. And somebody replies, calling a strong black women Phony Kamala lets me know we must vote. Here it is. This was deleted from Phony Kamala Harris's Twitter when it was scrubbed. She believes people at medical clinics, doctors' offices, and hospitals are hashtag racist. When black women walk into a clinic or doctor's office or a hospital, they're not taken as seriously as other women simply because they are black. This due to racial bias and my Maternal Care Act will address this problem. So yeah, she has claimed that healthcare workers are racist. My late mom, by the way, was a healthcare worker, but I don't get offended by shit like that. My mom was a nurse for over 30 years. Yeah, so let's see what Kyle Kulinski says. Here we go. So Kyle Kulinski is saying, oh well, let's hear this.
I'm gonna shove my dick in a waffle iron. I'm gonna shove my dick in a waffle iron.
I don't think she's into that, Kyle, but Kamala Harris on Joe Biden accusers. I believe them. I don't know what date this is from, but that Democratic Party snubbed Andrew Yang but gave a spot to John Kasich. That's probably referring to the debate, not the debate, but the convention. Congratulations to Kamala Harris, who will make history as our next vice president. She understands what it takes to stand up for working people, fight for health care for all, and take down the most corrupt administration in history. Let's get to work and win. That's from Bernie Sanders. And secular. So I said a few months ago that there's going to be a thing called the Kulinski fault line. Kyle Kulinski is one of these progressives that has said so far that he's not willing to vote for Joe Biden. He wavered a bit, I believe, in June as a result of some of the riots in D.C., where he thought that the federal government removing the rioters from Lafayette Park was enough cause for him to vote for Joe Biden because he thought it was ruthless oppression. Here we go. So this is why he doesn't like Kamala Harris. This is going to be funny.
In the midst of uncertainty and turmoil, America's support
Imagine all
for
these
Israel's
progressives voting for this woman and having this AIPAC speech being delivered above the dais. Then this is from Glenn Greenwald.
security must be rock solid. And as Iran continues to launch ballistic missiles, while it arms and funds its terrorist proxy Hezbollah, we must stand with Israel. As Hamas maintains its control of Gaza and fires rockets across Israel's southern border, we must stand with Israel. And as ISIS and civil war in Syria destabilize the region, displacing millions and threatening shared security interests, we must support all those affected by ongoing violence and terror, and we must stand with Israel. Our defense relationship is critical to both nations, which is why I support the United States' commitment to provide Israel with $38 billion in military assistance over the
Not going to get my vote. I don't believe in foreign aid
next decade.
to anyone.
It is why I support full funding for Israel, including for the Arrow, David Sling, and the Iron Dome missile defense systems, which save lives. And that's why I am fully committing to maintaining Israel's qualitative military edge.
So these are things she's said. We don't know what she's actually going to do, but it certainly doesn't, a lot of the Jewish pro-Israel community, they might point to that and say, hey, she's fine. She's fine. But I wouldn't trust her for shit. Doesn't matter what she says. I wouldn't trust her on any policy, anything. And Kyle Kulinski says it exactly the way it should be said. He says, now remember, if you oppose a person who laughed at legal marijuana in 2014 and didn't prosecute Goldman Sachs criminal Steve Mnuchin when she could have, you are a racist. So yeah, that's as far as what Kyle Kulinski is saying. Let's see what his old boss, or I think they're still affiliated. So you have Cenk Uygur, He says, 2 years ago, we said on the Young Turks that the establishment wanted Senator Kamala Harris as president. Here we are. She's batter up. Whether she ran a good campaign, the voters want her or not, the establishment in this system almost always gets what they want. The band plays on. And I agree with Cenk Yiga. I agree with him this time. These are fun thought exercise, but it's not going to happen. People refuse to acknowledge the most important fact. Establishment Democrats and progressives don't agree with each other at all. They would never make Elizabeth Warren Senate Majority Leader because they don't agree with her. So this is Wajahat Ali, who I forgot what I remember him for. I know that a friend of mine, Pedro, is often compared to him because they both wore wacky tan jackets on the air and they look the same. It says here, just for fun, Biden for president, Harris for vice president, Preet Bharara or Sally Yates as attorney general, Warren as Senate Majority Leader, step aside Schumer or Treasury, Susan Rice as Secretary of State, Jay Inslee as head of the EPA, Admiral McRaven as Secretary of Defense, Pete Buttigieg as UN Ambassador. Yeah, this isn't going to happen. These people are, but yeah, this is exactly why they are in dream. They dream of this type of stuff. They dream of it. And I guess he was arguing with someone else today over Vladimir Putin. Since Kamala Harris is Biden's VP pick, these means Ambassador Rice is a near guarantee for Secretary of State, National Security Advisor at a minimum. I believe that the main reason that Susan Rice was not tapped was because of Obamagate. She is technically behind the 8 ball legally for some of these unmaskings, and therefore with the Durham report coming out, they can't rely on her to not be named as perhaps one of the people in it who improperly and perhaps even gets indicted. So yeah, I was right in March. I don't feel better because I think if she becomes vice president and eventually president, yeah, we're going to have a complete and total upheaval. This is going to be a dictatorship. We're not going to actually be able to, even like she's the person who said that Twitter should ban Donald Trump. So that's the type of censorship loving authoritarian that the Democrats are putting forward. And this is something that I think people are going to have to harp on. As city's top prosecutor in San Francisco, Harris allowed pedophile priests to escape justice and became notorious for putting the Brown machine's friends ahead of the law. This is coming from a woman who reamed former Labor Secretary Alex Acosta for his light prosecution of sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein that happened during her tenure as DA. So this is what I would say is the nightmare pick for many of us. And I think if you're not a fan of either political party, but you cherish the Bill of Rights, you cherish especially the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, by the way, you cherish the Fourth Amendment, you want a chance at drug legalization, if you're one of these people who wants to have a non-interventionist foreign policy, you don't have a choice anymore. You might just have to vote for Donald Trump because she would be an absolute total disaster of a president. So that's about it. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find all of my other social media sites behind me. Let me just make sure that this disappears. There you go. And have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.